What's up, guys? In this video, I want to talk a little bit about why you actually shouldn't quit your 9 to 5. Everyone says, just take the leap, bro. Burn the boats. Screw your 9 to 5. Just leave them. But here's the truth that no one wants to say out loud. Leaving your job too soon might be the dumbest move you can make. I'm all for building a business. I'm all for starting a side hustle. I'm all for going your own way, chasing freedom. I live for that. I'm doing that myself currently. But freedom doesn't come from quitting. It comes from having options, right? In this video, I'm going to explain why keeping your 9 to 5 might be the smartest, most strategic thing you can do, and really how you can use it as a launch pad instead of a prison, right? So the first thing I want to touch on is your 9 to 5 is going to be your first investor. Everyone always says that you should leave your 9 to 5, you should start a business. And coming from someone who's worked 9 to 5s and also ran businesses, I'm currently in the process of working a quote unquote 9 to 5 and as well doing some business stuff on top of that. And at least for me, I can't speak for everyone here, but I find 9 to 5 as being valuable to some extent, right? It forces you to work. It forces you to make money, have income coming in, and you can take that income and throw it into either your business on the side, your side hustle, or just use it to help pay your bills and invest. And especially early on, most businesses fail due to lack of cash flow. I don't know the exact statistic here, but I've seen some stats somewhere that like 89% of small businesses in the United States profit less than 100 grand per year. So everyone always says, oh yeah, I want to be rich and all these things, but most people who start a business, they might only be making like, 2, 3, 4K a month to start off. And like in my job currently, I'm making upwards of right over that 6-figure mark in my sales role. And, I don't know if I'd be willing to necessarily fully give that up right away. Right. So, a little bit about myself. Have I ran service businesses in the past? Yes. But I don't think there's anything wrong with working a job, especially a high income paying job where you're making 6 figures or more, and then as well building a side hustle or business on the side first, because your paycheck is going to fund your runway, right? The tools, the mentorships, the time, the breathing room. And this is especially true if you're remote. I'm fortunate enough to have a remote role. I come from a blue collar background. I don't have a tech background at all, but I, invested in different type of sales trainings and courses to help me break into tech sales. And I personally couldn't have been more happy with my decision because when you work remotely, it does give you more freedom and time to work on these things, right? And you literally get paid to stay home and build quietly, right? Like, I do work hard during the day, but at the same time, like being able to work remotely does give me a little bit more wiggle room on how to build my business on the side. And if you're watching this right now and you're someone that's maybe working a warehouse job or you're working a fully in-office job and you want to start a business, instead of just full-blown quitting and trying to build a business cold turkey, I would almost recommend why don't you look into trying to find a remote role, right? Because that way you'll get more time back in your day-to-day life and your week, and you'll still have income coming in, right? Which will help you build and scale, and like you can just do both, right? There's like this whole overemployment movement on Reddit where people are working like 5 jobs. I personally don't do that. I'm not someone that has like 5 jobs. However, I am a big believer in working a remote job, putting 100% effort into the job and doing what you're supposed to do, right? But, use that runway and use that income coming in to fund your side hustle. Whether you're trying to build some type of service business on the side, whether that's like some type of agency, like copywriting, lead gen. Maybe you're trying to build a physical in-person service business, like, landscaping, power washing, cleaning. Like you can still build this on the side first. And, people always say, oh, I don't have time. I get it. Life is busy and it is hard to juggle a lot of these things. But I mean, there's 24 hours in a day and there's 7 days in a week. Quick math off the top of my head. That's 168 hours in a week, right? So you might sleep, even if you get a full 8 hours of sleep, right? That's 56 hours of sleep per week. Plus you're working 40, 50 hours at your job. Like you have time. You have time to hit the gym. You have time to go to your job. You have time to spend with your family. And you have time to, build your side hustle or build your business. So, I guess what I'm saying is kind of think of it as like the strategic hustler path. I just don't understand fully why everyone demonizes the 9 to 5. Yeah, don't get me wrong, bro. I don't really necessarily like working a 9 to 5. However, there's different types of 9 to 5. You have to find the 9 to 5 that fits what you want the best. I myself am entrepreneurial. I've always been entrepreneurial. Ever since I was 12 years old, I was literally like pushing my dad's lawnmower around the neighborhood, like cutting neighbors' lawns. I've tried and started multiple businesses, and I've always thought that way. So the reason sales appealed to me is because I'm going to learn the most useful skill that you need when it comes to starting a business, which arguably is like sales. And then secondly, I'm getting paid to learn it, right? So to me, a 9 to 5 is basically you're just getting paid to learn skills, and you can use those skills to start a business one day. But I'm also saying that you can just start a business while you're still in your 9 to 5, right? So just keep that in mind. That would be my first point I want to make is, you don't always need to leave your 9 to 5 right away. You can build and work a 9 to 5 at the same time. And those paychecks can fund your runway and different investments to help you kind of get started. And, the second point I want to make is like your dream isn't a leap, right? It's not like a one-time leap. It's a bridge. So people are going to be glorifying quitting, but it's not romantic when you're broke, scared, and desperate, right? So when you build something on the side, it's going to teach you that discipline, time management, and reduces pressure. And you're going to make better decisions in your business when you're not chasing rent. I myself, I try to live my life with no regrets, but one of my biggest regrets was when I was 22, me and my parents, like, especially my dad and I, like, I don't know, we were just like getting into it a lot. And I ended up moving out to like a very expensive apartment at the time, and the rent was like $1,900. And the reason I did it was because like I wanted it to force me to grow. Like this is when I was trying to break into sales. This is probably like 3 or 4 years ago, probably 3 years ago now. I wanted to break into sales, and I was investing in these different sales mentorship programs. I was trying to break into tech sales, and I found that living at home, I wasn't lazy, right? But I was like 90% or 85% at what I could be, right? Like I felt like when I lived at home, I was slacking a little bit, and I wanted to like, kind of like when you jump in a cold lake and it like shocks you. I wanted to shock myself into working harder. So I moved out kind of on a whim, didn't have much money at all, didn't have an emergency fund. And that whole time that I was locked into that lease, like I was just constantly stressed about the rent every month. I live on my own again now, but my rent's a lot cheaper than it was back then, and I have a way greater income than I did 3 years ago. But at that time, at first, like I kind of wish that I would have just like talked to my parents about it more and talked to them about like my plan instead of just like leaving on a whim, because that is so true. Like when you try to make a jump, when you quit a business or quit a job and you just go straight into the other thing, like you're not necessarily going to be able to just instantly figure it out and have tons of cash coming in. Like it's a process. You know what I mean? Like you don't just like any professional athlete, they don't just wake up and like they're amazing at their sport. It's a process of them consistently practicing, improving, getting feedback, and implementing those strategies. So, you have to think of this as more of a long-term play. There's nothing wrong with looking at trends in the business world, looking at things that are going on. But keep in mind that you're not just going to necessarily be able to instantly get where you want to be, and you have to think of it as a process, not just an instant jump. And the third thing I want to touch on is, whether it comes to starting a business, whether it comes to just leveling up in your job, or just in general, having better financial investments in day-to-day spending and week-to-week spending, right? It's all about leverage, not escape. So your goal shouldn't be to run away from your job or run away from things. Like when I was younger, I really wanted to move away. Like I wanted to move like out west or something. And I thought that moving away would fix all my problems, right? Like I felt like, if I just leave my hometown, it'll fix my problems. But I've traveled, since then. I've went places, right? And every time I travel, it's nice. Like I feel good about it. But like you're still the same person. It's the same thing with your job. Like if you think that you're just going to leave your job and instantly just figure it out and instantly just your business is going to be exploding, like that's not how it works. Like you shouldn't run from your problem. You shouldn't run from your job. You just have to outgrow it. And it's a process of daily inputs and habits and slowly changing into the person you want to become. So you want to stack wins on the side while still collecting income, right? Would you rather, like, if you have a job and you're making 50K, okay, and you leave your job and you start a business and you're making, let's say 4K a month, which is about 48K. Let's just say 4.2K a month. So you're making about 50K at this business. If you make 50K at a business versus 50K at a job, I would argue that you're actually smarter to make 50K at the job because you can literally just clock in your 9 to 5 and go home and not have to worry about the business. When you're running a business, it's like a baby. If you don't feed it and nurture it constantly, it's going to die, especially with this AI stuff and all these things that are causing businesses to improve day in and day out. You can't just, like, quote unquote, go home and not think about it. So when you build a business, right, I wouldn't leave a job that pays 50K to just go to a business where you're going to make 50K or less right away. I would almost try to do both at the same time, at least until your job is making the same, if not more, than your business. And if you see like some runway there and some potential to scale it, then for sure leave your job. Like I said, I don't want to like discourage people from leaving their job or starting a business because I'm all for that. I support people in that 100%. I've done it myself, and I love business. I'm very passionate about it, but I just want to make sure people do it the smart way, right? If you have a good job and you're making good money and you see some dude on TikTok talking about copywriting 20K a month from Miami, renting Lambos, I wouldn't just put in your 2 weeks and say, oh, I'm going to be a copywriter now, right? Because like you have to grow your skill set, and it's a process, and you're going to like slowly learn year in and year out. And you, like I said, you don't want to run away from it. You just want to outgrow it. So stack wins while collecting the income. And when the math makes sense, leave on your terms. Not when the podcast told you to, not when that TikTok guru told you to, but when it makes sense for you and your family, you leave on your terms. You got to keep in mind, guys, most of these videos you see online are just people who are in their early 20s or even late teens. I mean, like I said, I'm young myself. I'm 25, but I'm at least telling you straight up the reality of the world. These guys, they don't care if you have kids or family. They don't care like how much bills you have. They just want to sell you their course. I actually care about each and every one of you watching this video because like I want to build a tight niche community here of people that want to get better and want to win and want to achieve their goals. Now, I want people to achieve their goals in a semi-realistic way, right? So I'm not saying that you can't quit your job or start a business, but I want to really make sure you guys do it in the smartest way possible, and you're not like gonna set yourself back by making a stupid decision. So leaving your job too early is like jumping off, I would say, like a moving train, right? Because you hope you're gonna land on another track and instantly be going. But the thing is, like, if you just ride that train a little longer, if you stay focused and lay down your own track on the side, right? You clock in, you ride the train, you're doing your thing, but then maybe after work or when you can, you're laying your own track, you're laying your own business, you're kind of thinking of things to do. You can switch tracks way more smoothly without crashing. That's how you win long term. So like I say, guys, like I am not anti-entrepreneurship. I love entrepreneurship. I've been an entrepreneur on and off like pretty much my whole life. And I'm not saying to settle. But what I am saying is be dangerous and smart. So if you've got a remote job, even better. You're sitting on one of the biggest opportunities of our generation. Build, save, learn, stack skills, and when you're truly ready, then you can leave with leverage, right? So, if you guys made it this far in the video, let me ask you this. Is there, are you guys maybe building something right now, or are you just dreaming about leaving? Is there a certain skill or, maybe a business idea that you guys are currently working on? I'd love to hear more. And the second thing I would ask you guys is what's stopping you from using your 9 to 5 as your biggest advantage? I totally understand that 9 to 5s can suck, and certain 9 to 5s suck more than others. I've worked in restaurants, I've worked in, retail, I've done manual labor, I've done a lot of different jobs, and a lot of them do suck. Like, I'm not going to lie to you, but what's stopping you from using your 9 to 5 to potentially leverage yourself in a better 9 to 5, maybe a remote 9 to 5 or a higher paying one? Or what's stopping you from just leveraging that to maybe invest in your future or a business idea or anything like that? So drop it in the comments. I want to hear your guys' strategy. And if you want more videos on, how to break into high-paying, roles, maybe how to escape the 9 to 5 the right way, maybe just ideas in general to help improve your life and not to do it in the reckless way, please consider subscribe and stick around for more content. And if you know anyone that could benefit from this video, feel free to send it over to them. But yeah, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next video.